I'm Captain Tommy Scoble, and you're on the lifeboat. Welcome. Oh, my mustache is itching me. It's driving me nuts. So, we are having a atmospheric river winter storm here in Nevada and northern Nevada, and it is snowing to beat the band. It is dumping stuff so that virtually every couple of minutes everything is covered. It's they're saying that this is going to be one of the biggest storms. Of course, they're never right about much, but they are saying that this is going to be a pretty epic storm. So tomorrow, I would imagine that I will be out there in the morning doing my early morning shuffle routine, shoveling up all of the, just a little preparation, a little show prep, so to speak. So today we're going to talk about relapse. Now, this is a subject that we have covered, good Lord, I don't know how many times, but it is hands down one of the most important things that we can talk about for a lot of reasons. This is really the nuts and bolts and the absolute basic of this is the basic building block of recovery, period. Right? That's what it comes down to. This is it. It's all about whether or not you can link together days, right? If you can link together days, you can link together weeks. You can link together weeks, months, years. Your life starts when you can actually start to put together long periods of sobriety. At that point, you're hitting the base camp. And we can start to make an attempt to live our best life. It's going to be a challenge. You know, that's the reality of what we do is that it's never going to be easy. And nothing that is worth anything ever is, right? So if you saw the thumbnail, the first step of, and I almost disagree with this, I'm going to be really honest with you, which may be arrogant. Excuse me. The first step, according to everybody who has anything to do with recovery, the first step of relapse is the emotional relapse. And I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't believe this. You could tell me what you think at the end, and I'd be curious to hear what people's input is. So it goes, according to Hoyle, it goes emotional, and then mental, and then physical. For me, I always found that the mental came first. I would begin to think about my situation and find the situation that I was in was not where I wanted to be. And that would bring me into an emotional state. And that emotional state would bring me deeper into the fray. But according to science and the people that do this, who are professionals and have a ton of letters after their name, it starts with emotional. And we've talked at length many times here on the Lifeboat about certain emotional things that are very, very predictable, right? I mean, across the board predictable. Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, right? Those are all very, very predictable. And they are all huge driving forces to drive you into the wrong direction. And sadly, when we come off of a life of addiction, we come off a long period of time of doing dope every day or drinking every day, there are things that we do not take care of, right? We don't take care of our hygiene the right way. And I'll get emails tonight from someone that says, man, I kept clean the whole time I was... The vast majority of people neglect their hygiene. I don't mean they go a week without showering. I just mean that they're not treating themselves the way that they ought to be treating themselves. And this creates a whole host of problems that start you off in a mindset where you're not feeling good about who you are. If you look in the mirror, I'll be really honest. When I start growing out a goatee, right, and I look in the mirror, I feel scruffy, even if I just got out of the shower. And a lot of times I try to shave everything around it as often as possible. I don't let a day go by that I don't shave the rest of my face because I really start feeling just a little bit scruffy. And when you look at yourself in the mirror and you feel not quite yourself, you feel a little bit scruffy. Any small thing, when we first start down the road in recovery, anything small at all, is going to begin to chip away at us emotionally. the real key to this entire process, in my opinion, there are two keys. The first is to realize that relapse isn't failure. Those two things should not ever be used synonymously, and they are, unfortunately, by almost everybody. Oh man, I relapsed. Like, it's the end of the game, right? I had 7 years sober, and all of a sudden, boom, it's all gone. Every bit of it. It's all wasted. I destroyed everything. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You used. And although I don't encourage it, and I certainly don't want to make light of it, because, relapse is a huge thing. But it's key to realize that it is not failure. That is really not the part of this where you fail. Failure happens for those of us in recovery when we say, F it, right? Screw it. I don't care anymore. And I don't know about you, but I know about me. And that was when I was at my most dangerous. When I tried to talk myself into to getting sober, and I got, a week in, or I got 2 weeks in. And I'll be really honest, people, rarely did I get that long. I had a couple of times in my recovery, one where I made it almost 2 years through the use of medical assisted treatment. And a couple of other times I might have made it a month or two. For the most part, I had a very difficult time getting through that initial period of detox. For me, that was really a difficult thing. And because of my substance of choice, there's a lot of physical stuff that was associated with that, which made, it just really, really difficult. And every drug has something like that. I think probably the most difficult of all of them would be methamphetamine, because of just how much it releases brain chemicals when you're doing what you're doing. There's such your brain tries so hard to get you to throw the switch, because it no longer releases brain chemicals into your brain at any level. It really doesn't. There's a lot of science to back this up. When you're recovering from the use of amphetamines or methamphetamines, baseline times 3 or 4, or depending on the opiate, as high as 7, right? 7 times what your normal baseline of dopamine is. When you do methamphetamine, it's 10 times, and it can get as high as 15. 15 times what should be normal. And people who use that substance, unlike people that use opiates, who find themselves quite often really fighting the dollar, right? The ability to come up with enough money to stay well becomes something that is really, really difficult, right? So for that reason, they try to make sure that they can stretch the drug as far as they possibly can. And that often means, the term fixing, because they're getting well, right? Something, they're broken and they're going to fix themselves. Fixing is something that most addicts do about once every 8 hours, maybe once every 10 hours. If you have a ton of money, you might do it more than that, but usually that's about it. And they don't feel the need to do more until they begin to feel sick. With amphetamines, it has gotten to the point where it is so inexpensive in this country that many people get a bag and a pipe and they just smoke all day long. And with every single hit, the brain starts to release more. And over a long period of time, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, what you're going to be looking at is a term we use, Anhedonia, which means that you are no longer going to feel anything. You become Data, right, from Star Trek, right, the new Star Trek, where you're just, or Spock from the old one, where there's really just no emotion at all. It's basically just gone. And that means the inability to enjoy anything and the inability to feel anything. And this is a very difficult thing. So depending on what the substance of choice is, the emotions and the emotional part of the relapse is going to be a whole lot different. If your struggle is with amphetamines, you're not going to be feeling yourself at all. And you're going to be fighting that in a way that other people don't have to. This is why it is just such an insidious substance. The first step of the relapse process is when you start feeling wrong emotionally. And the lifestyle, you don't eat right? And you're coming off of a substance that more often than not destroys your sleep habit, absolutely destroys your ability to get a good night's sleep. One of the reasons that I beat the drum so hard about things like, man, get outside and go for a walk. You have to manufacture the desire to sleep. And this is regardless of your substance of choice, by the way. But when you start down the road to sobriety, you have to manufacture a desire to sleep. And the best way to do that, obviously, is to wear yourself out. 26 minutes of walking a day makes a huge difference. Last weekend, I did the watch show. You guys all saw that, or the antique show, I should say, where I was off and selling watches. And when those shows were over, I wasn't walking incredible distances, but I was standing on my feet for 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever. And I had to, load up about 300 or 400 pounds, awkward 300 or 400 pounds, carry it in, then bring it back out, and carry it in and bring it back out and do all of that stuff. And then there's a decent amount of running around and trying to keep your eyes open at everything at the same time. The point is, I didn't have any problem sleeping those nights. None. I promise you, I had a real problem keeping my eyes open. I was ready to literally pass out at 6 o'clock. The lifeboat was over. I didn't even want to eat. I just wanted to go upstairs, lay down, and fall asleep. So, if you can do things to ensure that you are staying worn out, I guess is the best way to put it. If you can consistently wear yourself out so that you feel the need for sleep, when the end of the day comes, you're ready to lay down and go to sleep. You are so far ahead of the curve, it's incredible. This is what happens to us. When we start feeling bad emotionally, everything else gets neglected, right? You start feeling like you're a little off course, and you know what? I'm not going to work out today. So you're going to be awake at the end of the day. And when we say, you know what, I don't know, man, I don't feel like going and working out today, or I don't feel like doing this, I don't feel like doing that. You're not just skipping things. You're trading them. So instead of going and working out, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to sit down on the couch and let ants crawl all over my brain. It is so easy to slip into the mental part. And again, for me, I thought the mental part came first. The ants would start crawling all over my brain. Then I would find myself depressed, and that depression would make me feel so uncomfortable in my skin that I would go and use. Regardless of whether or not you feel emotional or you feel the mental part of the withdrawal process, it's going to go 1, 2, 3. That third part, that's the point at which most people are going to feel like failures. That is the point at which most people are going to think, screw it. I don't even know why I'm bothering. I just fail every time. And very often, as we're using, you're driving to go pick up dope and the automatic negative thoughts are just crawling all over your brain. I knew I wasn't going to make it, man. I knew I wasn't going to make it. I don't even know why I wasted my time. I sat here and felt sick for 3 days for friggin' nothing. I don't know why I did this. Man, this is stupid. And an amazing thing happens. That needle breaks the skin. Right? And that plunger gets pushed down. Or that hit goes into the bottom of your lungs. Or that straw goes up your nose, or that bottle hits the back of your throat. You know what I mean? The liquid hits the back of your throat or hits your lips. And the automatic negative thoughts are gone. Instantly. That substance turns off the automatic negative thoughts. And it's dominoes. When the automatic negative thoughts stop, all of a sudden, you're no longer uncomfortable in your own skin. Another one drops. And pretty soon, we've convinced ourselves that the key to happiness is found in a bottle or found in a syringe, right? This is absolutely the most insidious part of what happens to us in this disease. We really, truthfully, and honestly convince ourselves, train our own minds to believe that happiness is sold by the gram. But we're not happy. We're just not miserable. We're just not being taken apart piece by piece by automatic negative thoughts. So the question becomes, how do we stop before we get to the second phase? Well, the answer is actually quite simple, truthfully. The only way that all of these things that drive us to the wrong direction, all of these things that get us to the bottom rung of that third step, right, where we just say screw it and we use. What gets us to that every time is right here. When the mental part starts to take over, it becomes a fist fight between you and your mind. Because your conscience, right? Your conscience is never going to tell you to go get high. Ever. Remember when you were a kid and they would do the cartoons? And if it was Sylvester, there would be a good Sylvester on one side saying, don't eat the birdie, right? And the other side going, oh, grab it, eat that bird. You know you want that bird. It's a funny illustration, but boy, there's some truth to it. Because your brain is carrying a pitchfork. And your brain wants the path of least resistance to ensure that you don't feel uncomfortable in your own skin. It's going to do everything within its power to make sure that you're not at the bottom of the barrel. And we've trained it that there's a really easy way to do that, right? You grab the bottle, you grab the needle, you grab whatever. So it's a battle between you and your mind, right? And that battle is fought alone between you and your mind. And that's when we lose. This is the point at which we require a power greater than ourselves. When people reach out to me and they say, I did this without any group therapy, I did it completely alone. Very oftentimes, there is a common denominator of a very strong religious belief or the ability to meditate, the ability to do things to make sure that there's absolutely no... you know what? I just got a text. Hold on one second, people, because when I get a text, I really am doing everything within my power, peeps, to try to stay out of the comment section for continuity, because people who have never seen this before don't. It's possible to not even realize I'm doing a live show unless I'm talking to people that aren't there. But I do want to do a huge shout to Wharton, because that is one of the most impressive things. So if you're listening to this, we're on a live feed. And one of the crew members on the boat, Wharton Fissel, said that after a month and 2 weeks, he found a pint of vodka. And if your substance of choice is alcohol and you find a pint, that is, you talk about temptation, to have that in your hand. The fact that you threw that in the trash, I don't know that there's much that I could say other than that is really, without a shadow of a doubt, the best thing I've heard in 48 hours. It really is. I know that chances are M. Hunt today is, oh man, if it's not day 2, then it's getting close to day 3. And that is awesome. And I know I have faith that happened. But Wharton, I'm so proud of you. It's incredible. And you know what, people? He's here and he's talking about it. When you fight that battle with your mind and you do it alone, you're going to fail. Now, if you have an unbelievable faith in God, you're not doing it alone. Now, there are people out here who are going to hear this and go, man, there's no God. Even if you really believe that, it makes no difference to the person that believes that there is. Because that person isn't doing it alone. They're communicating with a God that they believe in. They're spending a tremendous amount of time in prayer. Do you know what that does? And I'm not going to sit and debate the existence of God. You know how I feel about this. But if you're in prayer, try having automatic negative thoughts at the same time that you're praying. Once again, there's no hope of your brain doing 2 things at the same time. And if you're concentrating on the higher power that you believe in and having a conversation with that higher power, then you're not letting your brain destroy you. Automatic negative thoughts. Ants. I love the visual because an ant crawling all over a brain to me is something that I visualize so easily, and it just seems so evil. But I don't believe they're automatic. I really don't. And here's why I say that. If I sit down and I try to write something to someone I love, and I've got to write them a 5-page letter. If I'm posting something online and I have to type out what I'm trying to say, and I have to sort of pause and edit, and there's no automatic negative thoughts running around my brain. It can't. If I am working on a watch and my face is in there and I'm concentrating and I'm doing something, the only thing in my life going on at that moment is that watch. In fact, if I start thinking about something else, I'm going to fail at what I'm doing. So if you're doing something that requires that kind of concentration, then negative thoughts can't run wild on you. So are they automatic, or do we allow them to happen when we clean our schedule of everything that we should be doing and we sit down in a chair and we stare at the same 4 walls? Now, I'm not telling you can't have automatic negative thoughts when you're out walking, but it's a hell of a lot less likely. Especially if while you're out walking, doing everything you could do to not concentrate on things that are bothering you. Lyrics to songs, right? Anything that keeps your brain busy. Today is Calhoun Scoville's 31st birthday. That would be my son. And I spoke to him today on the phone, and we were reminiscing about his childhood. And I used to memorize all of the books that I would read my children. So, and I've told the story, but I would drive him nuts. I would pick up Green Eggs and Ham, right, Dr. Seuss. And I would hold the thing out and I would say, the sun did not shine, it was too wet to play, so we stayed in the house all that cold, cold, wet day. I sat there with Sally, I sat there with you, and I said how I wish I had something to do. It's too wet to go out and too cold to play ball, and we sat in the house, we did nothing at all, and all I could do was to sit. And I did not like it, not one little bit. While reciting those things, I am using parts of my brain, which fortunately are still functioning, because my memory isn't what it used to be, but the stuff I learned a really long time ago really does wonders. So as I'm sitting there and doing the cat in the hat, I can't have an automatic negative thought. There was a time in my life, and my brother Johnny could back this up, where I had once, on a dare and a bit of a bet, my freshman year in college, I memorized the vast majority of the first chapter of a book. Memorization requires a really heavy amount of use of the mind. You have to concentrate, you have to use little mnemonic devices, you have to really put a lot of effort mentally in to make that happen. You can't have an automatic negative thought while you're engaging in that type of activity or that type of behavior. If we know what stops an automatic negative thought, well, then it's not automatic. It's not. We made a mistake. The name of the book was Moby Dick. So to sit there and choose to do absolutely nothing, you're choosing to allow automatic negative thoughts to run wild on you. When do you make that choice? Huh? Honestly, when do you make that choice? If automatic negative thoughts start happening, grab your damn journal and write down what just happened. What are you doing? What's going on in your life that automatic negative thoughts are starting to run rampant on you? You understand that you must take a very seriously active role in your own recovery. However, do not fight it alone. When we get to that point where we made an error, right? We made an error. And all of a sudden, I'm staring at the same 4 walls. I'm doing absolutely nothing. I'm sitting on the couch. I got my feet up. I'm doing nothing. And automatic negative thoughts start disassembling my brain. You know what, Tommy? You're a piece of crap. Seriously. For the first 10 years of your daughter's life, or the first 8 years of your daughter's life, you were in prison. Yeah, you're a hell of a father. And all these thoughts just start going all over your brain. And they start taking you apart. It just starts to begin to eat at you, right? Well, I can sit there and let that happen. Or I can shine light on it. You understand? If I shine light on what's happening, those automatic negative thoughts are going to die. They don't like light. Ants absolutely hate light. I just got a text from someone that said, that's the Cat in the Hat. It's not green eggs and ham. No, I would hold up green eggs and ham, and then I would recite the Cat in the Hat. It was a joke I would do with my son too, and he would go, that's the wrong book. Or I would do green eggs and ham and hold up the Cat in the Hat. But we either allow these things to happen or we don't. There are people that I know who, for literally a couple of years, have been in the process of trying to remain sober. Yet every time the automatic negative thoughts start driving them from that first step to that second step to that third step, they won't pick this up and call anybody. They won't send a text message. They will not reach out. People, relapse has to be allowed. Hear that? Relapse has to be allowed. It does not happen of its own accord. We allow ourselves to relapse. We may not believe that we do, but we allow ourselves to relapse. Because I'm telling you right now, there's nobody that's going, do. I'm on day 25, man. I haven't had a drink in 25 days. I feel fantastic. My mind is engaged. I'm doing everything right. I feel like I've never felt before. I'm going to go get a beer. That doesn't happen. Relapse is a process. It goes, bah, bah, bah. Sometimes people will spend a month in the emotional stage of relapse. I'll be honest with you people. I am not in a good place right now. I'm not. I'm working on it, and I'm talking to people about it, and I'm being honest, and I'm doing everything I can to get it out. Some of it is brought on by some health issues. Some of it is just brought on by stress. A person that I really deeply care about has been having some real serious health problems as well. And I've been in a really bad place. I have. I haven't gotten to the phase of relapse where I'm going to be in deep trouble, because I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to talk to people. I'm telling 50 people right now that I'm not in a great place. I'm telling 50 people why I'm not in a great place. And I'm shining light on the things that upset me. Communication, right? We've said so many times that the opposite of addiction is connection. Yet when we find ourselves with automatic negative thoughts taking us apart, and we realize we're sliding toward the bottom step, what do? We shut the door. On everybody that cares about us, we shut the door. We turn the ringer off. We don't call people. We don't reach out. We don't do anything to stop the downward slide. I'm here to tell you that you may absolutely choose to not relapse. There's one guy, and he's no longer on the boat, and he got into medical assisted treatment. He was doing pretty well with himself, and things were going good. And one day, after his fourth or fifth relapse, where he jumped off medical assisted treatment, he would make it right till about the end of the month, when he was then able to go and get some pain medication, because he and his significant other both got pain meds. And then he would choose to get off of the stuff for 3 days, getting sick for those 3 days, so that he could then go use. It would make a lot of sense, right? But he was that deep into the addiction. And one day I said to him, why is it that you will never call me before you relapse? Why do you call me all of the time after you relapse? And he just, I don't know whether he wasn't thinking about it and he just came out with it honestly or whatever, but we were actually face to face when it happened. And he said, because you'll stop me. People, if you want to stop before you relapse, all you got to do is pick up the phone, and you ain't got to call me. You just have to call somebody. I would recommend that you call somebody who's in recovery. And I don't know, I took a hit yesterday, but I'm sure there's still about 3,600 people, right, that are all trying to go in the same direction. And do you know something that's crazy? You can call somebody, I hear people say, well, I was going to call so-and-so, but honestly, you know what? They've only been sober about 3 or 4 weeks. They don't have to be an amazing person in recovery. You understand? They don't. They don't have to have tons of time. They don't have to have anything. They just need to be able to listen and ask questions. Hey, bud, are you okay? No, I'm not. Here's why. Blah, 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 blah. So how does it make you feel? I'll tell you how it makes me feel. Blah, 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 blah. Well, then what are you going to do about it? Are you planning on going and drinking? Are you planning on throwing all of this away? You know? Why? We talk all the time about building your 5. Having 5 people whose numbers you have at your disposal so that you can pick them up at any given time and reach out to someone who's going to take that call and not go, you're thinking of using? Man, are you stupid? You know? No, someone who's going to go, I understand. Honestly, I do. You're going through it. You're feeling crappy in your own skin. You don't feel right. I get it. I absolutely get it. Hold on one second, peeps. ZW, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I really do. Boy, it sounded like somebody just ran into something. Didn't sound good at all. The choice to remain sober is a choice. The opposite of addiction is connection. And the opposite of relapse is communication. We don't relapse while talking to someone else who's sober. For real, that doesn't happen. We choose to not call those people because we want to slide into that final stage of relapse where we use, because that's how insidious the brain has gotten. I have worked with maybe a dozen gamblers on the lifeboat, people whose substance of choice is gambling. So their substance of choice is dopamine, and the way that they throw the switch on that is gambling. And every one of them, the first one really freaked me out, but every one of them said the same thing. But the first time I heard it, I was beyond shocked. But what they said is this: I was just as addicted to losing as I was to winning. And I almost tried to, the first time I heard it, I almost tried to argue it. I said, what you mean is you're so addicted to the process that you'll lose all of the money trying to get a little bit more. And he said, no, I was addicted to losing. You see, as a gambler, this individual said, as a gambler, you very rarely win. So your state of baseline in your brain that you have become comfortable with, what is the norm, is I just lost all my money. So even if you hit $7,000, you're probably going to put the entire $7,000 back into the machine or back onto the table or whatever. Because the brain, which is absolutely no doubt the enemy, your brain wants you to go back to whatever you know best. For them losing. Because that feeling of being a winner, oh my God, I just hit, right? There's the excitement of what you see on the screen. And then what you're left with is this doesn't feel right, right? This doesn't feel right at all. And I'll tell you something, I live in a city that you can gamble in 7-Eleven. You can gamble at the grocery store. The only place you can't gamble in this town is church. They have a machine set up basically in every kind of store you can imagine has got gambling in it. And I used to fart around with gambling. But when I won, I left with money. I'd be excited. I'd be, whoa, and that would make me feel good for a little while. But you get to a point, people, where your brain gets so used to feeling one way that the reason you don't reach out when you're on the downward slide to relapse is you don't know how to win. You don't have a clue how to win. Take this from a guy who lost for 3 decades. I didn't know how to win. It's a very, very difficult thing to get good at feeling like a winner when you've spent your whole life letting automatic negative thoughts tell you that you're a loser. How do you get How do you stop getting to that third level? You reach out and you talk to somebody. And it doesn't matter what it is. You know what? I'm not going to call the person. I'm just hungry. Call them. Call somebody and say, man, I don't know. I started feeling really hungry and then I started feeling irritable. If you shine light on your problem, it's going to go away. I want you to think of those early stages of relapse as darkness. You're in a dark room. You need a flashlight. Call somebody and turn the light on in that room. And those automatic negative thoughts are like cockroaches. You toss the light on and they are going to scurry off into the nowhere and you're not going to have to look at them or deal with them. And how obvious is this? Assume for a second that what Tommy's telling you is true. And that if you make a phone call to somebody, you are never, ever going to relapse. Why, if that is a fact, do 60 or 70% of the people in the process not reach out to somebody? Because they're going to get back to what they know best, which is feeling like a loser. Because if you start to feel like a winner, you're going to feel uncomfortable in your own skin. And you don't want to feel uncomfortable in your own skin. And we've trained ourselves that the way we make that go away is we pick up a bottle, right? Or we take a shot, or we do whatever. As much as that sounds stupid, I mean, I would relapse knowing that this ends with me in prison. But I would be sitting there so miserable that screaming silence, that noise inside your head that won't stop, that just makes you feel like there's just something. It's like nails on a chalkboard that you can't see. It's just that horrendous, uncomfortable feeling that is known only by the addict. I'm here to tell you that you can make that go away without drugs. You can. The opposite of addiction is connection. If you build connections with people who are sober that you could talk to, that you could have a conversation with and just say, I'm hurting, the hurting will stop. There's only one way you are ever going to find that out, and it's to call somebody. I want to tell you something. I was working a double shift in Unicor in the federal system. We were making uniforms, and I was a quality control guy. My job was to look at all the uniforms, make sure they were all right. And I had been sober probably 3 months, somewhere in there. And we went to dinner, and then we went right back to the factory. And we were going to be there basically until the sun came up. And some guys were just catching a nap and then getting right back up because we had to have a ridiculous amount of uniforms done in a short period of time. We were never going to make it, but we needed to get as close as we could. So you were allowed to work until you dropped. There were no laws like, you can only put this many hours in. We were inside. Nobody cares. So I was in there and I watched a guy take out a piece of tin foil, a battery, right? Light it onto a piece of rolled up toilet paper using the battery to create the fire. And then smoke a hit of heroin. And I looked at this guy, and I had been working for days on end, and I had been more uncomfortable in my own skin than I had ever been in my life. And I walked over to the guy, like the degenerate addict that I was, and I said to him, hey, you got any more of that? And he said, no, he does. And I went up to the guy, and he had what they call 100 papers. So for all intents and purposes, I was going to get one inhale off of this, which I would have held for, a day and a half. And it would have done amazing things to the system because of how little I had done in such a long period of time. But I went over and I said, you got 100 papers? He said, I do. And I said, when do you need to get paid by? We went through the whole negotiation process. And he said, let me go to the bathroom and I'll get it out and I'll be back here. Don't come over for about 4 or 5 minutes. And he said the name of the boss. I won't say the guy's name on here, but he's got anyway, he said the name of the boss. And he said, I want him looking over here. I said, all right, I'll meet you back over here. And when I looked up, At the end of the aisles are made of clothing, things stacked up ready to ship. And at the end of that aisle was Q. And he was just looking at me. He didn't say a word. So I walked down the aisle and I went up to him and I went, "What?" And he's like, "You buying dope?" And I said, "I was just asking dude what he was, what he had." And he goes, "He's got 100 papers. What do you think he's got?" He's not, of course that's what he's got. So you gonna buy one? And I said, "Look, man, I'm really having a hard time right now." I said, "I'm going through it." He said, "Come in the back." He said, "You don't have to approve anything until these guys are done." And that's the truth. As a QA guy, I could sit on my butt all day long until enough shirts were done to fill a box. So for about an hour and a half, I would walk around doing nothing, and then I would have to bust my hump for 15, 20 minutes. Then it'd be another hour and a half. So I went into the back where Q ran the entire section. He cut every single piece of cloth for every single military uniform that they made in that place for 20 some odd years. And I walked in the back and I sat down next to the desk with him. And he didn't stop talking until the sun came up. He asked me one question after another. He never crapped on me. He never made me feel stupid. But he sat and talked with me until the sun came up. And I'm here to tell you that the people that give a crap will talk to you until the sun comes up. And at no point during that entire conversation did I feel uncomfortable in my own skin. It was that moment when I realized that there's a second way to turn off that damn feeling. You don't have to use dope to turn off that feeling. You have to genuinely communicate with somebody. You have to be honest as hell and tell them you're hurting. You have to be honest as hell and tell them you're scared. I remember saying to him, I don't think I can do this. And if I relapse now, maybe I don't feel like such a loser. If I try to do this and I get 7 months under my belt or 8 months under my belt, and then I blow it. And he just patiently answered questions and he said, "Really? The day that you realize that conversation can do for you what $100 does, right? $100 that's only going to last 8 hours, and then you're going to be right back looking for the next 100. That's an epic day. That is a day that literally will change every other day that you have on this planet for the rest of your life. My thumbnail showed 3 steps. If you can learn what Q taught me in a prison factory, then you're never going to relapse again. The relapse that you're on right damn now will be the first good one. No, it'll be a great one. Right? We've talked about bad relapses. Bad relapses are the ones that lead to the next relapse. If you get knocked down 8 times and you get up 9, you're a winner. We don't concentrate on the number of times you got knocked down. We concentrate on the number of times that you get up. You got to stop looking at relapse as failure. You decide to keep using, you're failing. Make no mistake. If you're aware of the fact that picking this up will stop you dead in your tracks from getting to the next step in relapse, and you choose not to use this, you'll have to answer for yourself what that makes you. I'm not trying to be mean, right, to anybody, but what does that make you? I realize the proposition of living the rest of your life without a substance that you've been leaning on your entire life is terrifying. I did this, right? I'm not a guru. I'm not even a really great guy. But if I can do this, anyone can. You just need to honestly come to the realization that I don't have to buy that next bag. May sound crazy, and to people who aren't users, this conversation probably sounds like I'm speaking French. But there are people who are hearing me right now, and it is making sense. Because the truth of this story is that the opposite of addiction is connection, and the opposite of the downward spiral that is relapse, that ends every single time in the exact same way. I can't tell you how your relapse starts, but I sure as, you know what? can tell you how it ends. Emotional, mental. When the emotional stuff's been tearing you up and you don't pick up the telephone, the next thing that's going to happen is your brain is going to start playing games like this. Man, you really weren't that addicted anyway. I mean, hell, you got what? You haven't done it in 6 days. You can control this. You went 6 days without it. Get high today and then go 6 more days. And you know what you are? A social drinker. You can do this. You know, look at your friend Bob. Bob does that every single weekend. He goes out, he gets smashed for 2 days, and then he goes to work. He doesn't do it. Hell, sometimes he'll take a weekend off. Right? You can do that. I got news for you. You can't. That's not something that could happen. If that was something that could happen, there'd be nobody listening to me right now. That doesn't work. But your brain's going to tell you that, aren't they? They're going to say, you know what? You haven't used in 3 months. How much money you got in the bank? You just got a raise. How much money you got in the bank? Oh, we're talking about $100, man. You could do $100. And then it will start to tell you all of the reasons that you really weren't that bad off. It'll start saying stuff like, you know what, Tommy? You lose your cool every single time you start working on a watch that doesn't work. You know what I mean? You start yelling and screaming and throwing stuff. Boy, you never did that on Smack. You were calm. People liked you more. Man, seriously, you had way better relationships when you were on dope. You were calm. That stuff was good for you, right? The brain will just start doing everything it can do. It'll throw the kitchen sink at you to convince you that the best thing you can do in this world is take that hit. You know how you got there? You didn't pick this up. You didn't pick up your phone, which just vibrated. Unusual comment. And everything today is deadly. That's a hell of a comment. You know, these days we're not just talking about whether or not it's a matter of just getting high. Now we're talking about stuff that literally can take you off of the planet. And that, people, is frightening, right? It really is. It's frightening. Now, you know, same thing though, right? You know how many people are going to hear this tonight in countries all over the place who are going to go, our stuff doesn't kill you. You know, the brain's going to start telling them, hey man, at least you're not doing that fent. Man, you're just going to go get drunk. It's no big deal, right? This stuff's legal. Everybody does it. All of those thoughts can be turned off with one phone call. With one person that cares enough to talk to you until the sun comes up. And you know what? I'll be honest. You may not ever know why the person is willing to talk to you until the sun comes up. All right? Truthfully, it may not ever make sense to you. I was in a place where black people and white people aren't supposed to talk, period. Right? They're not supposed to talk, period. This dude and I had about as much in common from looking from the outside, nothing in common. The fact that we ended up being brothers doesn't make a lot of sense. And the fact that he would put the amount of effort that he has put into it to save somebody who then got to go and enjoy life while he had to stay behind makes no sense. But I'm telling you right now that if you call somebody on this boat who's hurting, you absolutely will find someone that's willing to talk to you until the sun comes up. You may not understand why, and I got news for you. It doesn't matter why. The reason they'll do it is because no matter how much we don't have in common, there's one thing we all have in common, right? We know the one thing that is absolutely a fact, that it sucks to be a slave to anything. There is nothing on this planet worse than not having control of your own life. And you know what? I know what it's like to hand over control of your life to a human or humans, to have no rights whatsoever, to have them say, take your clothes off, bend over and cough, go over there, sit down over here. This is when you get up. This is when you go to bed. You're not allowed to turn the lights off at night. Whatever they said went. And it had nothing on what it was like to be owned by a substance. For real. I was free for the first time in my life while I was locked up. I looked around and saw people that were locked up inside. I wasn't. When it comes right down to it, you're either going to make a phone call and reach out to somebody and throw the lights on, or you're going to relapse. And I'll be having this same show 3 months from now, and you'll be hearing the exact same words. Give it a try. What do you got to lose? I'd be willing to bet right now that you've tried a crap load of other ways, right? I did. Well, I'm only going to get high on the weekends, right? I'm only going to do 2 hits. I used to weigh out what I was going to smoke into individual little glass containers, and I would carry them in my pocket, and I would go, this is enough. Write down. So that I'm never going to run out for the entire week. I got just enough to do. Hold on one second. M. Hunt, good night. Send me your address, M. Hunt, please. I sent you an email today, bud. Respond to it. Send me your address. I need it. You understand what I'm saying, people? You're either going to give this a shot or you're going to stay a slave. You got nothing to lose. You really don't. Because we've already lost everything. We've lost our freedom. We've lost our freedom. And I'm going to tell you something. The first time that you got high, the first time you did anything, when there was no repercussions, just you and some friends, and it felt awesome, right? There was nothing. It was just fun. There was no, you didn't think about being addicted. You didn't think about anything. It was just fun. It's got nothing on the realization that I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to do this anymore. The day that it really hit me, the sun came up. I didn't buy that bag. And I knew I could do this. I knew all I had to do was tell somebody, I'm hurting. I don't want to get high. That's all I had to say. I'm hurting. I don't want to get high. Don't let me. Help me. That's all it took. That day was freedom. Whether there were bars on the windows or what, that day was freedom. It really was. And if you had come up to me that day and said, I'll give you $1 million, right? And a huge bag of dope. We just want to see you, start it up again. I wouldn't have done it. I'm telling you that is the gospel truth. That realization that, holy hell, this is over, man. All right, peeps. I'm going to now glance over to the comment section. We're going to see if I've been missing anything epic, and I probably have been. But the good news is this. If we look at statistics, the vast majority of people who are going to catch this have already bailed, right? The average person watches for such a short period of time that if we all spend a little bit of time hanging out right now, chances are we've already shook out those that aren't going to be here. Charlie Mullins, good to see you. Heather Joy, glad you're here. Conky Down, T. Prada, Trinity, red or blue pill, hi-ho, Kermit the Frog here. If you've never heard her do that on the channel, I didn't do it any justice. But you really should go by and listen to Trinity because Trinity has one of those voices. Honestly, it's hypnotic. I love her videos. And she has more skill when it comes to this whole big red button thing than anybody else I've ever met. You should really check out the channel and get a look at the way she edits and the things that she does because she's got skill and picks really cool stuff. It's going to come out wrong, but it's my absolute favorite way to fall asleep. Noise Opera, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Zen One, I appreciate you earlier too. But I love falling asleep listening to Trinity. I really do. She does really, really amazing stuff. Virginia, I'm glad you're here. Discipline equals freedom, a.k.a. Heather Joy. Absolutely. And you know what? It's not, I got to run 6 miles. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to reach out. Right? When I make the mistake of having time on my hands that are going to make me feel uncomfortable in my own skin, I need to reach out. That's the discipline. You reach out to somebody, you're not going to relapse. That's it. That's what it comes right down to. Hey, Dennis, I'm glad you're here. Hey, Chili Mama Bird. I'll be darned. Good to see you. John, Stacy, Michaels, ZW, always a pleasure. You know what? Coburn Spencer, he said this was a difficult one for me to watch. And I'm sorry, man. I really am. I'm sorry that I'm really happy that this was a difficult one for you to watch. And I'm not trying to be a jerk when I say that. But anytime somebody says that to me, it's because something good is about to happen. That's a gospel truth, man. I've been doing this long enough to know that. When people say to me, boy, that's a hard one to watch, that's usually a really good thing. And I'll tell you something. You sent me an email last night that didn't say a whole lot, but it said a whole lot. I shared it with a couple of people that I care deeply about, and it really was epic. So I appreciate you. Leisure, good to see you. Hey, Monk, thank you. I appreciate that, man. I really do. Miss V, good to see you. Ronnie Boss, he says, thank you. I needed this tonight. Ronnie, that's the coolest thing I've heard in a long time. Joe that you know. Glad you're here, Joe. I really am. Vicky Brooke, I don't think I said hi to you. Lord, Kiss Freak. All right. I eat a lot more now than I used to remember. I remember a time when I would pick food first. I would eat yesterday and wouldn't go back to keep fight for you, all the worth fighting for. You know what? Eating more is way better than not eating enough. For real. When you, no, you're welcome. You're welcome, and I hope your son is doing well. If ever he starts feeling weird because what we went through makes you feel weird, I would talk to him in a heartbeat. I don't know how he'd feel about that, but if he starts feeling weird from that, it's just like any other group. You know, if he talks to somebody that has been there and understands, I'd be more than happy to talk to him if he ever needs it. That's a standing. That is a standing invite. That's the word I was looking for. Miss Dragon, glad that you're here. I woke at 7:30 for kids at 7:40. Bed didn't get made till about noon. You know what happens to the best of us? It really does. It really does. That's we won't hold that against you this time. Charlie Murphy, thank you for being you and always being you. Virginia, it's just not the boat if you're not here. I'm so glad you're here. Vicky Brooke nailed it. Nutrition is very important for a lot of reasons. Eat. She's right. And a lot of times, depending on your substance of choice, when I was awaiting going away for the bank robberies, I was basically given a job where I took care of a lot of stuff inside the jail, and it kind of allowed me the opportunity to watch individuals who were first coming in, and you would see what these people were on. So if somebody came in on meth, they would eat like a Viking. And you would watch guys that would put on, I mean, literally just ridiculous amounts of weight. The amounts of weight that these people could put on in a really, really short period of time was always impressive to me. And then you would watch people who came in on other substances who couldn't seem to get that eating thing going in any way. You know what I'm saying? You're always better off. I would rather see you err on the side, especially in the beginning, of eating a little bit too much. You know how you eat at Thanksgiving and you just eat too much and you feel like you're going to explode, and then what happens? You fall asleep, right? Lack of sleep is the enemy. Lack of nutrition is the enemy. If you're eating, sleeping, and exercising, you are increasing your odds of success massively. You realize that? I mean massively. Linda Pierce, I'm glad you're here. Good to see you. Blue Dazzlebug, I don't know if I said hi to you, and I don't see your, I was going to say better half, but that would be the other way around. But I'm glad that you're here, and I know 7th must be lurking nearby. Good to see you, or at least know you're here, 7th. Yeah, err on the side of eating too much. Don't err on the side of not eating enough. Alrighty, peeps. That pretty much wraps us up for the day. There's the 7th son. I knew he was here. That wraps it up for today. People, this is the nuts and bolts. It really is. You're going to know. Stacy Michaels, I don't think I said hi to you. This is the nuts and bolts. You're going to know if you're on the first step. You're going to know if you're on the second step. Don't let that happen. When you start feeling uncomfortable in your own skin, pick up the damn phone and call somebody in your 5. And if nobody answers, I promise you, you go leave a comment. Bo Gillespie, good to see you. That's okay. We record it, so you can catch it. What about those that were alcoholic and ate properly due to their? I missed the last word of that. Send me an email because I would like to see what you actually just said, but it scrolled out of the way. For those interested, I'm going live on Chase the Heat. Oh, we could go over and love bomb Chase the Heat on his live. Lord Kiss Freak is calling for the kitty. Alrighty, peeps. I'm going to be back tomorrow night, same squirrel time. Tommy Bird, good to see you. I'm going to be back, Conky Dong. I don't know that I said hi to you either. I'm going to be back tomorrow night, same squirrel time, same squirrel channel. I will also be live tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. This is the Lifeboat. We're live on the 5s. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. And that is a cat in a basket. Good night, everybody. We love you. Zen Wen, reach out to me. I'll help you with that. All right? Take care, Joe, that you know. Good night.